And you can stream Good Things. We are live and live in color over at SuperTalk.fm, where you can watch and listen to the show. And if you are watching on SuperTalk TV, you'll see I'm not alone this afternoon in the studio. Joining us is author but most importantly, loving father, Russ Dumas. Him and his family received news back in 2007 that no family wants to hear, and it was that their daughter had leukemia. And from that came a letter to Marganie, which is a beautiful love story, I believe, of the good that can come out of a not-so-good situation. So welcome, Russ.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's good to be here. And it's rounding out September as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. I have to tell him myself, you provided me this book. You mailed me a copy probably a year
Last
ago.
fall.
A year ago. So, I mean, that's fine. But I feel like maybe that's a God thing because it's been sitting on my desk. I didn't throw it away. I did not read it. It just got buried. And it came back to life. I refound it, cleaning up and moving some things around. And I was just so intrigued by the beautiful story that's in such a small book. So let's go back to 2007. Just sort of set the stage with us in terms of what your family looked like, how things were quote unquote normal, until it wasn't.
Well, just like all the other folks with children at that point in time, we were busy with 4 children, boy, girl. And at the time, my wife, Cindy, was the director of the children's pharmacy at Barry Blatson Hospital. And, of course, our days were full with all the extracurricular activities that go on with school and church and sports and so forth. And then about a month after Christmas, Marganie started complaining about a sore ankle, and we just kind of chalked it up as, kids, rambunctious, twisted an ankle. Well, it kind of went on for 3 or 4 days, and my wife finally, being in the children's hospital all the time, kind of the radar antennas kind of went up. She said, well, maybe we should get this checked out. And so, lo and behold, make a long story short, after everything had been done, the blood work test, and she was diagnosed with leukemia.
And that's when you heard the news your daughter has leukemia. What hit you and your wife first? Was it just shock or fear or all of the above?
All of the above. I to this day, I can remember the first thing that just came to mind was, all I could think about was, how much time do we have left?
Right.
Because, you hear the word cancer, you pretty much think of one thing.
One thing, right.
And, that world just didn't exist for me. Children didn't, of course, we had broken bones and stitches and the normal stomach virus stuff, but the C word, the cancer word, never, ever came into my train of thought. And it's like I asked my wife, Cindy, one time after she got, I said, you've been in this children's hospital for all these years, and I said, how do you deal with it? It's just, she said, well, you learn to quit looking at the faces. I don't mean that ugly, but...
Right.
And, when you spend a couple of years up there, you kind of, it's just a...
Which to them, they see it every day working. And now it's Children's of Mississippi, but then Barry Butts, and then it's still their wing, I think, of the hospital. It gets confusing when they start changing names on you and doing all the things, but they're up to good work there. But you're right, and I think one thing I've appreciated about the stories we've shared here on Good Things during Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, which is September, is just the fact that we all think it's rare, and it's a good thing because that means, it hasn't penetrated all of us the way that adult cancer has, but it's not as rare as people would like to think that it is. And then it really hits home when
it's
it actually...
It's never going to happen to me.
Until it does, right? And then then you are part of a group that you never want to be a part of.
And you're coming and going, and every room you look in, every hall you look down, there is a child that shouldn't be there. But unfortunately, they are.
But there's great doctors and researchers.
And there's great doctors and researchers, that's just people don't know how blessed we are to have that hospital over there.
Well, my attraction to your book, A Letter to Marganie, which is your daughter when she started this at 5, is not really sharing of the journey of all the treatments and the fact that Marganie's now 20 and she's, moving on and living her life to the fullest, which is a happy ending. But it's the fact that you saw light in small acts of kindness from your community, friends, and family around you. And that was the part you wanted to make sure that Marganie and the rest of your family never lost sight of. So during all of that, when's the first time you just started to recognize maybe something in the air in terms of act of kindness that you didn't notice pre your daughter has leukemia?
Well, it started day one, really. And it didn't stop. And there were times I would feel like guilty. I'd say, good Lord, these people are blowing, making me look pitiful. I've never, ever once done some of the, or considered doing some of the things, just the little small things that people did. And I was driving home one night, and I had called my father. And I was something had happened that day, one of these little instances, and I just remember mentioning it to him, and I wanted him to know about it. And he said, well, you are keeping up with all this stuff, aren't you? I said, of course I am. I said,
About everything else you have to keep up with, Dad. Yes. I'm writing down all these acts of kindness.
And these things you couldn't forget, some of the things. I mean, when you get an envelope in the mail and it's got 4 $1 bills in it and $3.27 in change, and then the note, will just kind of...
Share that story.
Well, got a card in the mail one day, and it was made to Marganie, and you could hear the change in it, clanging, And there was a note in there from a grandmother that said, my granddaughter heard about your daughter at school, and she was over this weekend, and she wanted to send her something. So the grandmother said she looked up, and the granddaughter wasn't in the house. And she was kind of got concerned. She got to looking for her. She wasn't in the house. She went outside. And about a few minutes later, she looked up the street. She just comes walking down the street. And she said, where have you been? She said, well, I went and knocked on the neighbors' doors to raise some money for the little girl with cancer. And I got $4. She had 4 $1 bills from 4 different people. Well, she went in the house, woke her grandfather up who was laying in the lazy boy, made him get up, and took the cushions out. She dug through the lazy boy and the couch. She found $3.27 in change.
So she put it all in the
She put it in there. She made a little handmade note card, folded up, mailed it to Marganie.
And I bet, and that's a story that was imprinted on your heart. It didn't matter if it was $4,000. It just mattered the fact that there were folks outside of your tight-knit circle that were thinking about your Marganie and praying for you and wanting to do the part.
Didn't know this lady. Never haven't heard from her since. Might have passed. I remember she was local. I mean, it was a Brandon mailing address. But those little, like the time when I was at a store that's connected to one of the parking lots. I mean, one of the walking trails out of the reservoir one Sunday afternoon, and a lot of the people that jog and bike and whatnot, they'll park in the parking lots there and hit the trails. Well, I noticed a couple of girls over there stretching. One had a Team in Training shirt on. And we were very familiar with Team in Training by that point in time.
Which is a group of people who will get together and train for marathons, triathlons, half marathons, but they all do it with raising money and awareness for certain organizations. And a lot of times they will choose families who are battling cancer.
Races all over the country, the world, and whatnot. And so I wanted to go over there and just, hey, wish you luck. And, of course, I wasn't dressed like I look like. I just came out of the barnyard. Anyway, I walked over, and I was getting close, and I could tell they were kind of looking at me like, what's he want? And I just kind of stopped at a distance. I said, hey, I noticed you got a Team in Training shirt on. You getting ready for a race? She said, yes. She said, I'm doing a marathon, full marathon. I'm getting ready for it. And I said, well, I'm familiar with Team in Training, and I just wanted to say good luck, and I appreciate it. And I turned around, I started walking, I turned around, I looked back there, and I said, well, do you have an honored teammate yet? And she said, yes, I do. Her name is Marganie Dumas. And, never laid eyes on this girl before, hadn't seen her since. And I said, well, that's my daughter. Well, she stopped her stretching. She walked over and gave me a hug.
Of course she stopped her stretching.
Yeah. And she said, I wish y'all luck. And I said, well, I wish you luck.
And that's one of many stories in a letter to Marganie from your dad. It's a love letter. We're going to get to the cover art and more of these precious stories and the underlying message that I feel like I don't want you to miss out on this gift that you've given all of us. Russ, coming up next here on A Little More. And if you're watching over at SuperTalk TV, you can now see our guest's pretty face. I get tickled. You got some text messages that told you needed to move the mic around. They actually wanted to watch and sort of see you. So if you can
now
stream.
They see really how
now
ugly
they
I am.
Don't say those. We don't use that word here on Good Things. But it is good to know that you can watch or listen live over at supertalk.fm. And I do have with me Russ. He is the author of A Letter to Marganie. He is the father of Marganie, who found out at 5 she had leukemia. But this wasn't just a story or a book about all the hardships that your family went through, because undoubtedly, I think it was 4 years of treatments that your daughter and your family,
Right at
3 years. It's more about remembering all of the good acts of kindness that was shown to your family, from big things to little things, and not to lose sight of that. And I think that is super important, and it can be a blessing to many. One of the acts of kindness that really caught my attention, it was on the bigger side, is the cleaners. Can you just share that story with us, Russ?
Yeah, that first week, I got a text from a friend who, at the time, he was a friend. We weren't close, but anyway, he owns a cleaning business, and he said, I want to come clean your house. And I said, no, we got all that under control. And at the time, I was also learning about, I didn't really know what all was going to happen to Marganie during these treatments and everything, but my wife kept saying, we have got to just be, everything has just got to be speaking, which we always kept a clean house. She's always OCD
it's different
about that.
Whenever you have your immune systems
That's
compromised and all the things, yeah.
And so he said, no, he said, we're going to put the, I don't remember what they call it, but I mean, they got the
They're going to do right by you.
They're going to do the big one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, no, that's all right. He said, as a matter of fact, we're going to do it while she's in treatment. I said, no, Captain, she can't do it. This might last 3 years. He said, I understand that. He said, I already got a key to the house. What day you want us to come?
Was it hard for you, Russ, to accept the kindness?
Yeah.
The help?
I did. It was. And
because I feel like a lot of us listening to Good Things can connect with that.
I was saying no to a lot of this, and I finally had a lady an older lady who had reached out to me, and she said, I understand you've been a little hard-headed about some of this. And she said, look, you got to understand that this is, these people want to do stuff like this. It's not only a blessing to you, it's a blessing to them. And I had a hard time with that, but I finally came to the point that, I realized, I don't have any choice.
You needed the help, and the help was there, and then you get to pay it forward. And I think that's the beautiful thing with, being able to give when you can and then be able to receive those blessings back. And that's why it's a two-way street whenever, you do good things. And I also think this is an important reminder for all of us. I mean, now with the beauty of social media and prayer groups, we are hearing more stories about families who are going through unimaginable circumstances, and you have a wider community of people who want to help. And we don't always know why some people connect with one story versus another. I mean, that's for, a conversation not here. But when they do, sometimes you feel like the person sending the $4 or doing the cleaning or just sending a meal or a message, you feel like, well, I'm just one of 1,000 that's doing that. But I think, Russ, what you're reminding us here is that every little act of kindness doesn't go unnoticed, and it leaves a positive mark on that family's life and journey, whatever the outcome is.
I'm telling you, some of the smallest acts of kindness just made the most astounding impact.
Share the story of the Blue Vase.
That when you're in the hospital and you're in there for days, you just I know one thing, you tend to just leave your door open because just like you're stuck up in there. But anyway, one of those hospital stays, I was coming and going. I noticed there was right at the door, the bedroom next to us, there was a little boy in there, and it was his mother, and that was it. And never really saw anybody else in there. And Marganie had visitors from the time they let people come through the door in the morning time till the time it was time to go to bed. And she got gifts out the wazoo. And, balloons, plants, toys. It was too much. And it was to the point where some days you just kind of feel bad. And, some days she just takes stuff down the hall to other children. But the little boy next door, he just kind of kept himself, and that's quiet. Fine. They were just quiet and everything. And so, but I always noticed that vase with the blue flower in it. It was set right in the middle of the windowsill. That's all he had for about 4 or 5 days. And the next Saturday morning, I had gotten there early. It was cold. Of course, Cindy stayed with her every night. And for some reason or other, I walked in. I closed the door. I never closed the door. And about that time, there was a knock on the door. I went over there and opened the door. Well, there stood that little bald-headed little boy. And he looked up at me and he said, "I'm going home. I want her to have this." And he held up that vase with the blue flower in it. I didn't know what to say.
That's awesome.
Yep.
The small acts from that to even,
the only thing he had.
The cleaners who gave of their time and effort for the 3 years to make sure your home was safe for Marganie. And you guys, as a family, are still continuing to sort of pay it forward. You've got this sort of logo or this idea that everything's going to be okay, or EGBO, and you've made it into Egbo, and you've made it into, I guess, shirts and a logo. You even have it on yours. So what's the story behind that?
Well, that was one of those deals. I was, I'm sitting here during all this, and you thinking, man, you're looking at the bright side. And back then, when I was sitting in meetings, I would always, or conferences or whatnot, I had a bad habit of just doodling. And I doodled, and I saved all those doodles. And I kept thinking about this old sheet of faces I doodled one time, and they were just all wacky and, well, that one right there, that's on that shirt, that's just always came to mind. So anyway, that coming Christmas, I took that to a screen printer and I said, put this on a shirt and put a Santa Claus hat on. We're going to put Merry Christmas. Well, it did 50 of them. They were gone in a week. So anyway, make a long story short, I started just doing up these shirts and kind of a fun thing. And I send them to anybody that tells me about somebody who's fighting cancer or needs some uplifting. I got, a little care pack, shirt, toboggan, hat, whatnot.
I think we all need to be reminded that everything is going to be okay.
That's right.
And if we want to read the book, A Letter to Marganie, how do we do that, Russ?
Best way to get it is go to Amazon.com.
And share the story of the beautiful artwork on the front. Well,
Marganie was in kindergarten when she was diagnosed, and she was able to go back to the classroom in the 3rd grade. And when she got back in the class, her teacher was going to be going on maternity leave shortly. And she asked the class to all draw a picture of what they thought about her having a baby. And that's what Marganie drew. And a gift to God. And she came home. I remember she showed me that, and I said, well, I got to save that for some reason or other. So I saved it. And when I always knew I wanted her to know all this, so I thought, well, that'd just be a good title to a book, and that'd be a good cover to the book.
We have someone on the text line, Russ, that says, I received an Everything's Gonna Be All Right shirt after I was paralyzed in a helicopter accident.
My.
So, and it's just, again, it goes to, you don't have to give out shirts, you don't have to write books, you don't have to give away free services for 3 years to clean homes from top to bottom. Those are the big things, right?
That's right.
But, the story of just giving all that you have, whether it was $4 or I guess $7.27, a blue flower, from everything from your daughter going to the farmer's market and making friends because it was a safe place that she could go during the day. I think it is a beautiful gift and a reminder to all of us that small and big acts of kindness still matter. And I love at the very end you have a poem or something of a letter that reminds us to watch the seasons turn and to take time for the good things. And that's exactly what we try to do here every day with the show. Do you feel like your family has continued that? Taking the time to see things or take time for the good things?
Yes, and I hope so. That little deal came from when you would come and go from that hospital during, you for 2 to 3 years. You're going to come in the spring, you're going to come in the summer, fall, and winter, and you're going to experience the sights, of fall, the coldness of winter, the smells of spring, the heat of summer, whatnot. And I got to the point where I'd walk out and I'd say, I just passed a child who's not going to ever hear these birds sing again. Or I just passed a child who's not going to ever feel fall again. And that's where that came from.
And I think that's a good place to remind us, too, especially with so much going on that pies for our attention and that keeps us angry. And,
that's just some of those little things that God gave us.
Well, God gave us you today, Russ, to round out September. And Letter to Marganie. Again, it is definitely a gift, and it's a blessing. And everything's going to be all right. If they want to find you online, Russ, how do they do that?
They go to eggboSmiles.com at GoDaddy.
All righty. Well, we appreciate. Next time, bring Marganie in. I want to ask her where she got her interesting name from.
Okay.
All right, you guys stick with us. We got more for you.